It's April 2026. Picture this. High above the jagged peaks of the Zagros Mountains, there's a flash of fire, then a plume of black smoke. An American F-15 is going down deep inside enemy territory. Against this harsh orange sunset, two parachutes pop open. For one of those men, a decorated colonel, a 48-hour fight for his life has just kicked off. And what happened next? Well, it's one of the most daring and complex rescue missions in modern history. This is the incredible story of the Isfahan Extraction.
We got him. Those were the three words that ended the whole ordeal. A huge moment of relief broadcast to the entire world. But to really get the weight of that statement, to understand the sheer guts this mission took, we've got to go back to the beginning, back to the moment it all went sideways. So yeah, this whole saga kicks off with that flash of light and the screech of tearing metal. It's the violent, chaotic start to a crisis that would push special operations to its absolute breaking point.
Okay, so it's the fifth week of Operation Epic Fury, this brutal and really costly air war against Iran. And when this F-15E gets hit, it's not just the loss of a plane. It's the first U.S. combat aircraft downed in the whole conflict. That's a huge propaganda win for Tehran. The pilot, he gets recovered. But the weapons systems officer, a respected colonel, he's now all alone. His parachute drops him deep in hostile territory, a remote, treacherous place where literally every shadow could be the enemy.
For the colonel, the next 2 days are just harrowing. It's a straight-up fight for survival. His leg is shattered, which turns every single movement into pure agony. He's being hunted by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, so he's not just trying to escape, he's in this desperate race against time and his own body. In a final, last-ditch gamble, he starts this painful climb up a 7,000-foot ridgeline, just hoping to get a clear signal out to a world that has no idea if he's even alive. And to make a terrible situation even worse, the Iranian government puts a price on his head, $60,000. So now he's not just a downed pilot, he's a marked man. He's a high-value target for search parties, local militias, you name it. The clock is ticking. And like President Trump said, those IRGC search teams were getting closer and closer by the hour. Now here's the crazy part. While one man was fighting for his life on some desolate mountain, a second, totally invisible war was being fought in the shadows just to save him. This was a battle of wits, of pure deception, and international cooperation that spanned continents. This rescue was really a symphony of shadows. You had this coalition of some of the world's most formidable agencies working together. CENTCOM was in command of this massive 200-strong rescue force. But you also had the CIA, Israel's Mossad, and the IDF all playing these critical behind-the-scenes roles to misdirect and basically blind the Iranian military. The CIA's plan, it was a masterstroke of deception. Their agents started spreading these rumors that the colonel had already been found and was being moved by road. This simple lie forced the IRGC to completely scramble their forces. They diverted their search teams to major highways trying to intercept a ghost convoy that never existed. It was classic misdirection, and it bought the real rescue team precious hours and cleared the airspace right over their actual target. So while the Iranians were off on this wild goose chase, Joint Special Operations Command, JSOC, was getting ready to unleash a storm. They put together this incredibly audacious and super high-risk rescue force to go deep into hostile territory. The absolute key to this insane plan was something called a FARP. Okay, in simple terms, they were building a secret gas station for their helicopters, deep inside enemy lines. They took over this abandoned airstrip south of Isfahan so they could launch and refuel their short-range attack and rescue helicopters right under the enemy's nose, in a place they would never, ever expect. And just look at the sheer scale of this force. We're talking SEAL Team 6 on the ground, the legendary Night Stalkers of the 160th SOAR flying the helos, the 24th SDS running that secret airfield, and all of them are being supported by a fleet of transports, rescue choppers, gunships with top cover from F-35s, A-10 Warthogs, and this constant unblinking eye in the sky from MQ-9 Reaper drones. It is a staggering display of military might, all for one person. The stage was set. The players were in position. The deception was holding, but for how long? The world basically held its breath. This was it. 0 hour. And then, finally, after 48 hours of total silence, a voice crackles over the radio. It's the colonel. His first 3 words, God is good.
And for just a second, there's this unbelievable sense of relief. But that relief, it turns to ice-cold suspicion almost instantly. So you have to understand, this phrase sent a shockwave through the command structure. Was it a prayer from a man who knew rescue was close? Or was it a duress code? They were terrified he'd been captured and was being forced to lure them into a honeypot ambush. So before they could move an inch, the colonel had to go through this intense authentication process, answering these very specific challenge questions that only he could possibly know to prove his identity and prove that he was alone. Once it was confirmed, the SEALs went in. But by now, the Iranians knew something was up. The night just erupted in a storm of gunfire. Tracers lit up the darkness as the SEALs laid down a wall of lead, fighting their way to the wounded colonel. The final extraction happened under what sources called a hail of heavy fire.
They got him. Mission accomplished. The colonel was safe. But the story doesn't just end there. The exfiltration was messy. And the mission's legacy is defined as much by its success as it is by the razor-thin margin between total triumph and complete disaster. Right when it seemed like they were home free, disaster struck. As the force tried to leave, two of their huge MC-130J transport planes, the mission's absolute lifeline, got stuck on the rugged, crappy runway. This was, as they called it, the holy shit moment. Suddenly, you've got over 100 elite commandos and the guy they just risked everything to save, stranded deep inside Iran, with daylight fast approaching.
And this is really where 45 years of hard-learned lessons made all the difference. The ghost of Operation Eagle Claw, that failed 1980 hostage rescue also in Iran, was looming over everything. That mission fell apart because of fragmented command and no backup plan. 8 people died. This mission in 2026 had unified JSOC command and built-in redundancy. They just called in more planes, got every single person out, and then blew up the stranded aircraft with explosives to deny the enemy any intel. It was a profound evolution in military capability. But while the world was celebrating a hero's return, the war itself was still raging on. And its economic fallout was being felt everywhere. The conflict had sent oil prices skyrocketing past $106 a barrel, choking supply chains and threatening to plunge the entire world economy into a recession. The price of this war was being paid far, far beyond the battlefield.
And that, of course, includes the devastating humanitarian price. While America celebrated bringing one of its own home with 0 U.S. casualties in the raid, human rights groups estimated that coalition bombing had already killed over 3,500 people inside Iran. This stark contrast, the immense effort to save one life versus the thousands lost in the wider conflict, it paints a really complex and troubling picture of modern warfare. Which brings us to the final big question. The Isfahan Extraction was, without a doubt, a tactical masterpiece. It was a showcase of bravery and technological supremacy, but does a single brilliant victory really change the trajectory of a long, costly, brutal war of attrition? It was a moment of profound grace in the middle of all that chaos, but it also forces us to weigh the value of tactical brilliance against the immense strategic, economic, and human costs of modern conflict.